Hello, everyone. It is Wednesday. It's 4:30 p.m. Central Time. English. I know it's hard. Speaking also hard. But here we are. It is office hours, where you can get your weekly update on what's going on in the Intune and ConfigMgr world and pretty much everything else around Microsoft infrastructure, and also your chance to ask questions within the hour. So, hey there, Andrew. How are things?
Oh, pretty good. And I'm not gonna chalk it up to, learning English. I think that was just your Norse mythology slipping out a little
Slipping
bit
out
there.
indeed. Yep, happens all the time. Yeah.
Your roots, of course.
Yep, there we go.
No, doing well. Otherwise, we're it's that time of the year. Everyone's starting to go back to school, getting busy, and yeah. But what's new? I feel we're always busy.
Well, it was our little boy's his first day as a fifth grader today,
Oh,
and he managed not ending up in the principal office. I'm very pleased about that.
that's very good.
Yeah. The Arwidmark farm has some big announcements, of course.
Ooh.
No shed for the goats was finished this weekend, or goats. And apparently we got ducks today.
Every time you finish one project and a new animal shows up. I love it personally, but
Yeah, I've been told that dog eggs are pretty tasty, so I guess I'll find out in a month or so.
I'll look forward to my breakfast invitation here soon.
Of course, that was my nest. Yeah, yes.
I knew it. I knew it.
All right,
Awesome.
back on track. Back on.
Yes, absolutely. How about we share a couple of updates that we've come across from the community this week?
Yeah, screen coming up, or your screen coming up. I mean,
Uh, Perfect. There we go. So I'm actually going to zoom in on that a little bit. There we go. Came across this tweet from Panu from earlier today. It looks like devices are now reporting Windows 11.24 H2 compatibility. This is at least coming through in ConfigMgr hardware inventory. There are a couple of replies to this thread that it's not natively in Intune yet or anything, but um, still worth mentioning, I think, as Panu mentions here, the vast majority of devices that are already on Windows 11, 21H2, 22H2, or 23H2 are going to be compatible. But useful information nonetheless, just in case there is some compatibility issues. I think in one of the replies, um, Trevor may have mentioned there were a couple of additional safeguards that are popping up for 24H2. So I'll make sure to post this parent tweet here in our links for today
awesome. So
because of
what
that.
was the? It's a little bit hard to see here. Is it? What's the second character after the G? Oh, that GE. All right. So I wonder what that code name is for. I know that NI is for nickel, and the older ones was cobalt, but because the first two characters in the upgrade experience indicators is the code name.
Well, GE is the name for germanium, so maybe that's it.
That might be it. All right, we'll find out. Always
The
interesting, but cool to see it showing up. Indeed, in the
Yes,
catch. Yeah.
definitely. Thank you, Panu, for sharing that. Um, Another thing I came across was a fairly large script from Martin Himkin. It's a PowerShell script that will help you test network connections to the various Intune services. So you can see here there are a ton of parameters for this script. Like I said, it is a large script and well documented by the looks of it. But yet again, another useful troubleshooting tool in our toolbox. This is something that has come up more frequently, especially in some of the courses that Johan and I have been teaching, where we're seeing that folks are, whether it's a proxy or whether it's just an enterprising young teenager in the house that is trying to do some DNS ad blocking, you often have some issues where your endpoints can't communicate out to these Intune services. So Martin's script here will help with some of that. Looked like he is still continuing to work on this. I know he teased it earlier on this summer, and I think just released it a couple of weeks ago. So you can see a lot of effort has gone into this.
That's a decent sized script. Was one of the collections by any chance the autopilot in the list of endpoints you could pick?
Good question. Looks like it. There we go. Specifies whether to test all of the autopilot service area. So really fantastic stuff. Nearly 2,000 lines. That is impressive.
Commitment right there.
That's right. Also came across, I think we mentioned this when it was announced over the summer. Let's see, when was this? Beginning of June. So there's a new look coming for the Intune company portal that's supposed to improve some of the design around the home, devices, and downloads and updates pages on the company portal. So we mentioned this. There is a way to deploy the preview currently. But the reason I'm bringing it up again today is that the original rollout was August, and I noticed that this is now expected in late September to start rolling out. So just wanted to call attention to that real quick.
All right.
And the last thing I had here was what looks to be somewhat of a nasty bug that is patched in this week's Patch Tuesday. There is a TCP IP remote code execution bug that's patched that affects all systems that have IPv6 enabled. These days, I haven't really been seeing too many devices disable IPv6. I don't know. Are you still running into that much these days, Johan?
It still happens. Some organizations have it disabled, but in general, they leave it on because there are other features in Windows that may rely upon it or use it. Often features you don't even think will be using IPv6 is using it.
Mm-hmm. And I think Microsoft has long said, their recommendation is to leave it enabled, but there absolutely are reasons that you may not. So if you do have this enabled in your environment, patch. It looks like start patching, and this is all the way back to. Let me see if I had that right. I think this may have been
Vista 2008.
Yep.
Yeah, you have to upgrade those Vista machines, Andrew. I'm telling you.
So I gotta go. I gotta go patch all these things now. But hey, you and I both know they're probably out there in some 2008 servers as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. Good Lord.
Yep. So start patching, basically.
Yep.
All right. So that was what I had for today.
All right. I had a few things. First of all, I stumbled across a interesting tweet. Go ahead and share that screen. Mike Marble noticed that during out-of-box experience, if you deploy an older image because you want to test something with that particular image, it started to patch right away and upgrade to the next version of Windows. And they can be pretty time-consuming, those feature updates, if you're sitting there waiting for something to happen. So my immediate comment to this post, okay, that is cool. That's helpful to make sure you get up on the latest version, but how do you disable it? Haven't figured out that one yet, but maybe some info will come up here in the discussion. So there was a long thread going on after this one, but I thought it was interesting enough to mention. And then I stumbled across an old update that I must simply have missed at some point, but it turned out that if you set this particular registry key when you deploy machines to be patched by either ConfigMgr or Intune, in this case, as the tweet was about, this was a school. They were deploying a bunch of spare machines and just had them sit there available, but they would never patch until someone would actually log on to the device. So this key allowed them to hopefully do that. So looking forward to play around and test for this one. I saw some other community members chime in and say, yeah, we have a script that sets this. Beautiful. All right. So yeah, maybe that. Then I revisited an old friend today, boot images in ConfigMgr. Me and some folks at work, Mike Terrell and others, we were updating boot images or copying boot images. And we needed a quick way to figure out, okay, what drivers has been added to them? Because you guys probably know that if you go into a boot image in ConfigMgr, like this one here, of course you can easily see what drivers have been added to it. And if I wanted to add those same drivers to another boot image, well, in this case I had 4, so it wouldn't have been that big of a trouble to go in and edit them for others. But turn out that there are ready-made options in the get CM boot image PowerShell commandlet to figure out all the reference drivers for it. So if I run this little snippet here, kaboom, and then select my boot image drivers, then I have information about all those drivers, and I can easily script that into all the other ones. So that would be one way of doing it. Of course, I can also find the drivers in ConfigMgr and right-click and do edit, and I can add that to multiple boot images. And that's probably fun, the first 40 drivers, and then. So I thought it was cool. And up and stumbled across this one again. I also saw some scripts out there in the community. People have been writing to basically allow you to duplicate a boot image. Like, I have one here, I just want to copy with all the settings. So that was pretty cool. So total sidebar, but I thought it was brilliant.
No, that's fantastic. I actually happen to have another way that I think I can use that. I'm helping somebody move from basically legacy driver packages over to modern driver management. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I've always learned was you still, of course, have to have your storage and network drivers that are attached to boot images loaded into your and loaded into your legacy driver packages, right? Fantastic way to very easily list out what you would need in that scenario as well. So thank you for that. You just solved a problem for me. Thank you, sir.
I'll send you the bill.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. So no, that was what I heard in terms of updates at the moment. It's always fun to stumble across older stuff that's a good refresher, if anything.
Definitely. All right.
Yeah. Do we have any questions out there?
We do. We have a question from Benny over on YouTube. Do you know if cmpivot in ConfigMgr can query hkey current user? I need to get a report on all scale size for user displays for a project, and I believe that value is in hkey current user.
That I do not know.
I don't either. I'm just trying to see if I can find something here.
I don't think any of the cmpivot examples I have is for that. I would assume the user would have to be logged in also.
Mm-hmm.
because we don't really know who that user is. I haven't the foggiest, but
True. And if you're running that from...
this ConfigMgr runs this as system.
Exactly.
So if I pick a given device here, I don't know, maybe if you can pinpoint, I don't even know if you can query the user's key. That's a good question.
Yes, indeed.
But I know you can use a baseline for it, because baselines in ConfigMgr allows you to run them as the user, as the logged on user. So you can definitely get that information and leverage something with it. So that is not the end of the world. If everyone happen to know that is listening in, by all means, let us know.
So resolution, you can get resolution from hardware inventory, right? I don't know if you can get... It's been a while since I've tried.
There are some Reddit threads on the topic. It seems like it's not supported. And folks recommending to use alternative methods, basically a healthy dose of PowerShell. So that goes back to the baselines.
Okay.
Wow, it was a great question.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not coming up with anything more than you already found, so... Tough one. All right. We do have another question that came in here around Windows updates. From Intune, is it possible to completely disable Windows updates? The idea is to allow another product to manage it. Need to stop the Windows client from reaching out to Microsoft.
Well, the moment you enroll into something else, like say Manage Engine or whatever else you want to try out and play around with, I learned the hard way that devices don't really like to be managed by two different MDMs at the same time. We're helping a company migrate from Manage Engine to Intune, and I didn't learn that they had Manage Engine until they started to have a problem enrolling devices into Intune. And then I was like, got error messages indicating there was another MDM provider. It's like, do you have something else? Yeah, we use this for scripting. It's like, yep, they were all enrolled into that one. Because even if set an Intune policy that disables Windows Update, the moment you enroll that device into the other platform, there was always risk there's going to be a gap there when those policies are being removed. And if you start to tattoo those settings in using scripts and the registry, then you have the problem that you need to clean them up after the fact. Because today, as we mentioned many times in office hours, it's still one of the most common reasons updates are failing on devices is because there's junk coming in from older management solutions on that platform. It could be an Active Directory group policy, it can be a ConfigMgr client policy, it could be a script that has been configuring a registry key somewhere, and that is now causing a conflict with, Intune wanted to do updates. So I don't really have a good solution for that one.
No, I've never been in that scenario.
The only thing I can think of working is the ugly method of scripting in those keys to make it not do updates and then flip them back when the new management solution is in place.
Mm-hmm.
Or delete them when the new management system is in place. So maybe that. Test. In a lab first.
Yes. Always good advice.
And let us know if it works also.
Yep. All right. Shri is reaching out over from LinkedIn with a hello, and how are you both doing? Doing all right. Thank you for asking. I have a question regarding on-prem DCs versus ADDS. We have both now on hybrid. What's the best solution? So I think what we're talking about here is your on-prem legacy Active Directory, which could be on-prem or could be running in a VM in the cloud, or the Azure domain services, basically the platform Active Directory. And if I'm right about that, it's been a little while since I've looked into the Azure AD one, which is probably now called Entra. Let's see here.
I think they're still called Active Directory Domain Services.
Oh, okay.
Rent the domain controller.
Let's see.
I'm not entirely sure.
If it is the like hosted version of Active Directory,
Yeah, that's the one.
yeah, they have renamed it to Entra Domain Services.
Of course they did.
Even though it's literally Active Directory. You know what I'm trying to find right now, and why I'm stammering a little bit here, is I'm fairly certain that I somewhat recently came across a simple table, because there are a couple of things that the hosted version, which is the term I'll use for the moment, the hosted version of Active Directory has some potential limitations.
I have not used that one, so I don't really know. I remember from a talk, late night chat in the bar at the MMS conference, that our friends over in Europe, Kim and Tom, managed to get a ConfigMgr server, use one of those as its domain controller.
Yes.
Pretty cool. ConfigMgr requires a domain, but then you need to have domain controllers.
Exactly. If you want to share my screen, Johan, I found that table actually in Microsoft's documentation.
Oh, there you go. Andrew here.
Thank you. And so, of course, no, this is from the perspective of I've not implemented this or anything, but as a starting point, I think this table could go a long way. So a couple of things to note here. If you need to do constrained delegation with accounts, you can't do that in the managed version. You can't do schema extensions, although based on what you said, it sounds like there may be an unsupported way to to get that going. But you can't do schema extensions in the managed domain.
I mean, you don't need schema for ConfigMgr. Just very helpful. It doesn't require it. It will still work.
True. But if you are doing that for, let's say, if you had hybrid identities and you had your Exchange schema extensions or any other ones, any custom schema extensions, you wouldn't be able to do those in the managed service. So there are a couple of things here that, depending on your organization, this may be a great solution. I think size was another issue. So size meaning the amount of objects for the managed version. It might be, oh gosh, I'm trying to draw from memory here. I'll see if I can find some additional documentation to share, but I think either pricing or capacity constraints around the number of objects that you could have in a managed domain versus hosting your own Active Directory domain. So a couple of things to consider.
Yeah, I found an older last year LinkedIn post from when it was still called Azure AD Domain Services. And that one you could probably bring up to screen. Let's see if I can put that in our internal chat here.
Okay. I got it.
Interesting, the author mentioning not being able to use remote desktop to domain controllers being a big limitation. That's something you probably shouldn't do anyway. Single domain, single forest, no child domains. Not all legacy systems. Yeah. All right. No, it was an interesting summary.
Yeah, good find.
We'll share these links as always under the video here. So, yeah. Any other questions out there? Still have a half hour to go. I have an update I can share in the meantime.
Oh, yes.
I was working on this earlier today, but at the MMS conference in October in Fort Lauderdale, we're going to do our very first office hour live from the conference in one of the big conference rooms. So need to get some more cameras so we can have a good view of the audience also.
That's right. Really excited for this.
So that'll be cool.
Yeah. It'll be very different to how we normally do it up in our hotel rooms during the conference.
Yeah, or in a conference room or something that we borrow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Sidebar, but fun one. Any questions at all for us? I'd be happy to answer.
Wonder if everyone used up their questions last week. It kept us busy.
Last week was like up to the hour and more. I was a busy one indeed.
Absolutely. We did have another question around IPv6. It's pretty easy to create a PowerShell script to disable it. Are there better ways without using a script? Oh, and then there was a follow-up, specifically in Intune.
Well, my recommendation would be still not to disable that, but rather patch your devices for that vulnerability. But I bet someone has created some guidance on disabling IPv6 using Intune.
I found a post. It's just a Microsoft Learn post from 2022 that somebody from Microsoft responded that there is no setting in Intune specifically. So sounds like scripting is the way to do it if you need to. Benny is asking, what are your thoughts on remote help from Intune? We're looking for a new solution and we're still using remote control through ConfigMgr.
Well, it's darn expensive for a start. It's extremely expensive.
Unless you're a fortunate user of the A licenses.
Yeah, if you're education, then you get it for free. That's pretty cheap. But normal companies, they have to pay for it.
Yeah, and it is very expensive.
Was it $5 or was it $2 per device? Or per user per month?
It's funny, you'd think by now I would have the add-ons memorized. But they're all priced differently. Remote help is $350.
$350, that it was, yeah. Or you buy the Intune suite for $10 per user per month, and then you get it for free. Okay. Or get it included. I mean, it works well. It does the job. But it's a very expensive solution. I mean, a lot of the customers that I work with, I use other solutions like BombGuard or ConnectWise and others that has a richer feature set, including things like backstage access and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want something that is well integrated, you only have that option or the TeamViewer integration, and that one is definitely not cheap. We stopped using it in our lab because it was well over $2,000 a year for like 3 users. I'm like, whoa, no, thank you.
No, typically, if possible, and this isn't going to work for every scenario, there's a reason why organizations want solutions like remote help. But I try to invest time, more time into implementing remediations if there's a specific problem that we're trying to solve, or an application that I might assign through Intune. And if possible, if it's just screen sharing, use Teams. You won't be able to elevate to an admin or anything like that, because you won't be able to see the UAC prompt. But that's usually my first recommendation, if possible. Great question. Let's see. We've got a question on YouTube. What tools do you guys recommend to troubleshoot and report on compliance of not installed updates on Windows endpoints?
Well, that's an Android question right there.
It depends on if you are on the Intune side of things or the ConfigMgr side of things, or if you have hybrid joined devices, Entra joined devices. The easy answer for a lot of organizations these days are the Windows Update for Business reports. And I can show those real quick if you'd like to share my screen, Johan.
Mm-hmm. I can and I shall and I will.
Thank you, sir. So the Windows Update for Business reports we can get through here. So in our Microsoft 365 Admin Center, we go to Health, Software Updates, and then check the Windows tab. Here you will find, if you have not configured this, you'll find some good documentation on how to configure it, because there's some log analytics work that has to happen in the background, as well as some configuration profiles that you have to configure on your devices. So for this, once we have that configured, we can go to these reports. And give it just a moment to load here. And we'll start to see some information about these devices. So this first overview tab, we get a high level of how many of our devices are actually up to date with the latest updates, how many have in-service feature updates of Windows, how many are end of service, how many are in Insider. So some good high-level information. But of course, then we can dive into the quality updates and start to get more information there. We can see how many devices we have on each version of Windows based on a month, a specific month, or a specific patch level. We can do the same for feature updates. We can do the same here for driver updates as well, if we have them assigned through the driver and firmware update feature in Intune. And then you also have a delivery optimization tab that shows how well you're doing for delivery optimization in your tenant. So that would be my starting point, but I do see some follow-up comments here that Windows Update for Business and these reports aren't available in GCC. So coming from the GCC perspective and on-prem WSUS, is ConfigMgr in play? Would probably be
good community dashboards for ConfigMgr. I know that PatchMyPC also have a commercial one as part of their advanced analytics offering.
So even if ConfigMgr is at least in play, like Johan said, a lot of community solutions there. I actually even like, it's a community solution, but it's from somebody at Microsoft, is a nice set of reports that can be used with ConfigMgr. Let's see. Yep, the PatchMyPC also has a free update dashboard for SSRS, so that's available. There are some reports over at System Center Dudes, which are great reports. You do have to pay a small amount for those, but they're great reports. So those are the three off the top of my head, but those all rely on ConfigMgr. If it's just standalone WSUS, nothing comes to mind off the top of my head.
It's been a long while since I saw a standalone WSUS. So
yeah, but I'd be happy to share these as at least. I find a lot of value in these couple of solutions right here. Just plugging them right into ConfigMgr and having them utilize the information that's already there, or that's already likely there from your endpoints. So I hope that helps. We have another question from Diego over on YouTube. Do you have any advice to exclude some devices from a security baseline? The thing is, I exclude a group from an already applied baseline, but it's not changing the security settings for the excluded ones. So this is a fun one. If you exclude the group, that would be the starting point. What I have run into, depending on the settings, and maybe you have something to add here too, Johan, depending on the settings, you have to make sure that they are explicitly configured in both sets of the baselines. And some of those settings are likely to be tattooed. So if you're just excluding them to the point that you want no security baseline on there, you would need to have something that sets them back to the default rather than just to not configured for some of the settings. Would you agree with that, Johan?
Yep.
Okay. And unfortunately, last I've seen, I don't believe we have a good report on which settings are tattooed and which settings are not.
Not that I have seen, no.
Okay.
I was wondering if the new quality update distribution report was supported in GCC High. I don't have a tenant I can test it, unfortunately.
I also just noticed at the top of the Patch My PC page for the free SSRS reports, these are now deprecated, but I wouldn't be entirely surprised. Take this with a grain of salt. I wouldn't be entirely surprised if they still work, but they also have a Power BI report as well. So I'm going to share all these. Thing is, with this, not a lot has changed in terms of reporting. So even a lot of these older reports will work just fine in my experience. No, that's perfect. We appreciate you coming up with the questions. GCC questions are especially good because we get stumped on them. You can't easily spin up a GCC tenant and start playing around with them.
Unless you buy a small country and then you can. Isn't that from one of the old Die Hard movies when stealing all those gold bars and then trying to figure out what country to buy?
Yeah, that sounds right.
I mean, I think it's let me bring up this screen here. In general, there are many different a lot of differences between these type of GCC High and the implementations of Intune, hosted in different data centers, and there's a lot of limitations in it. So, but Microsoft is working on closing in the gap for sure. But there is a long list of stuff that is, for example, not available right now. Stuff like we may be used to be able to do things like build a pilot or do expedited update or feature updates and other fun things. So yeah, if anyone happens to know a way to get good reports out of software updates in such as tenant, let us know. We'll be happy to share it. But otherwise, yeah. I was trying to figure out if this report was available in DCC High, but I couldn't find anything because this one was one of the more recent reports in Intune. It was added in May 1st this year. So while it's generating that report, yeah, so here we are where you can see the distribution of different updates in your environment. So I mean, we have all these reports here, but I do not know which one of these that are actually available in a GCC High tenant. Well, definitely not these guys, since those features didn't exist. Kind of hard to get reporting out of that then.
Indeed.
All right. What else is going on?
I see Matt is joining us with a question, but it looks like the message may have been cut off, or maybe he didn't finish typing it yet.
That was an issue with the DP not getting the package from the ConfigMgr site server. That was an error code, but we didn't get the error code. So it must have been a link or something been cut off from YouTube. But in general, to troubleshoot package distribution from ConfigMgr, that one is not too terrible, because no matter the package, ConfigMgr sends them out the same way. So if you go to a site server and you open up the installation folder, in this case I have it on my E drive, and go to logs, you have the dist manager log file. That is the generic component here on the site server that deals with this. But you also have the package transfer manager log file, and that one will show the distribution as the packages as they are being copied out to the different distribution points. You will see things like block sizes and how far they are in the process. If you have any current packages that are being distributed, I don't have any in my environment at the moment. There is also in the tools folder, this one here, if you go to server tools, they added that back in 1802 or something like that, but you have the DB job manager utility, and you connect that to your site server. And that one will show you also all different the distribution points you have and ongoing job to them, and if there are any problems, etc. If there is a bunch of retries and whatnot, that will show up. So these log files, in combined with this one, would be where I would start. All of this information is also available through PowerShell. I was working with one customer a while back where, in order to save disk space, someone in their wisdom decided to not back up the content library. And then they had to do a restore just to learn that, well, it takes a good while for a content library to be built up, and that takes even longer to replicate a 600 gig content library out to 4 data center regions around the world. So we had to write PowerShell scripts so we can control the priority better. So all of this is available in PowerShell also. But I would start there. Log file and this utility to see what's going on. Sometimes it's as simple as network issues to that remote distribution point. But it is the site server. Unless you have a pool DP, it is always the site server sending content to the DPs. So yeah, I would start there. And also check the package sizes. If you go into your software updates folder and you start to see packages that are like 100 or 200 gigs in size, yeah, it's going to take a while to push that one out there. So keeping those package sizes small is of course useful. Even breaking them up, so you have one package for client updates, you have one for server updates, you have one for office updates. You can skip completely to have packages for definitions. It's not needed. But yeah, check the package sizes. Not sure if I have any on this one at the moment, but maybe. Yeah, here is one where you can see the package is over 100 gig. And this is for the new UEP updates. And that's a lot to push out.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Matt did have a follow-up that I dropped into our chat.
Yeah, distribution manager failed to connect to the distribution point. That could be networking issues, could be firewall issues, it could be remote WMI access issues. Could be that the site server simply don't have permissions to the DP admin group or something like that. But errors like that, I would suspect network issues more than anything. Or if the DP fell out of the domain or something. But great questions, all. Thank you.
Oh yeah, we got a lot of good links and everything for today as well.
Perfect. That's what we like.
Indeed. Keep us busy and keep us on our toes. All right. Do you guys know of a good way to get Entra sign-in logs to an external SIEM that doesn't require Log Analytics Workspace or Event Hubs? Graph, maybe. Yeah, Graph would probably be the first thing that I would think of.
You wrote a few scripts to parse Graph audit logs, audit logs from Graph.
Indeed, and I happen to have those around here somewhere. In the Entra ID folder. If you want to pull this up, Johan, my screen.
Yep. On it.
Thank you, sir. This would be, might be a good start. Depends on how you have your SIEM and everything connected. But this is sort of some basic queries that we can write against the audit logs in this case, but I think the sign-in logs would be very similar. A lot of times, maybe the question wouldn't come up if the vendor has this, the vendor in question has this, but a lot of times in my experience, the SIEM vendor will have a connector that does some of this in the background. One that I've worked with in the past did essentially communicate with Graph, but it was based on a solution that the vendor themselves had put together. Otherwise, anything that I've been involved in recently did, in fact, use Log Analytics workspaces. But I will share this just in case this is helpful. Guess I need to change the name of the script as well to match the parent directory.
Yeah, I mean, Microsoft obviously wants you to use their solution, Sentinel, that is part of a SOC and a CM solution as well.
Yep.
Security information and event management. SIEM. Yep. That is a great question.
Yes, it is. There's a lot of really cool stuff happening in that part of our industry. It's not something I've ever had the opportunity to focus solely on, probably because I enjoy this so much, but there's a lot of cool stuff happening there.
Yeah, I mean, if you think going forward, so these different solutions, how they start to interact with AI and other technologies to detect the patterns and leverage that vast amount of knowledge. What drives me bonkers at the moment is that it's no real good way for someone to just try it out and play around with it in a lab.
Yeah.
Because the costs are so steep. I'm not. I don't know about you, Andrew, but I don't have like $35,000. I can just cash up to play around with a little bit of Copilot for security in a lab for a year.
No, sir. If I had that kind of money to throw around, you'd know about it.
There will be signs. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it will be me inviting you to play with my new Sentinel implementation in my lab. I agree, though, entirely. It's something that I'd definitely be interested in playing around with, but
Yeah. Yeah, fun stuff. All right. And for the record, I was not repricing for Sentinel. I was the pricing for Copilot for security or security for Copilot. But I believe that the order is there for the words.
yes.
There was a follow-up comment there regarding, oh, great script. I have to come through the rest of them, see what you have. By all means, do. That's why they're there.
That's right. Hope you find some goodies in there.
Yeah. But that means that we are, in fact, up on the hour here. Thank you so much, everyone, for your great comments and questions. We appreciate it. We definitely hope to see you again next week. And other than that, have a great rest of your week, everyone. Bye for now.
Thanks, Johan. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Have a great one.